My name is Peter Stalens. I lead the mobility team at Eurocities. So for today, we decided to have an inspiring opening debate. And we decided to invite two organizations that are quite at the forefront of transport innovation. So we invited Jill Warren from the European Cyclist Federation and Johanna Tsanidaki from Ertico. One, of course, presenting the perspective of the cycling community in Europe, which has expanded a lot in recent years, and we're very happy about that. And then Johanna is representing the European ITS community. So basically, Ertico is presenting the key stakeholders in the field of mobility data, mobility as a service, traffic management, everything that has to do with digitalization, connectivity, and automation in mobility. And of course, both organizations, we know, also do a lot of work on urban mobility, working with cities. So we thought that for the first capacity building week, which is about inspiration, it was a good occasion to invite both Jill and Johanna to the opening plenary. The concept is that each of you has 5 minutes to present how you see innovation in urban mobility and how it can be fast-tracked across as many cities as possible in Europe. I would suggest that we start with Jill, and then we move on to Johanna. And then I have a few questions in mind, of course, but we will also take some questions from the audience. But maybe Jill, if we can start with you and how you, on behalf of the European Cyclist Federation, see innovation in urban mobility for the coming years.
Thank you very much, Peter. And many thanks for the invitation to speak today. The fact that all of you are here shows that you are ready and willing to innovate in your cities and that you already are innovating, I'm sure. And that's something to be applauded because it takes foresight and courage to innovate, particularly if you are surrounded by people who think they like the status quo just fine. In fact, and that's a pretty common trait of humans, to be resistant to change. So innovators sometimes have a tough time of it. Anyone following the COP26 negotiations of the last 2 weeks saw how difficult it can be to get consensus on the change and the innovation needed to save our planet. Things kept getting watered down by parties who didn't want to change the status quo or didn't want to change it as fast as we need to. So it's great to have a project and a forum like Fast Tracks to come together to explore avenues for innovation, and even better, how to accelerate it, all in the name of sustainability, especially when the climate stakes are so high. I'd like to share some thoughts on how we see innovation at the European Cyclists Federation. We think it's partly about technology, but that's just one part. Bicycles are a 200-year-old technology. The standard bicycle you might see someone in the Netherlands riding, for example, pretty much looks the same as the bicycles they were riding 100 years ago. Conventional bicycles are still with us, but there has been some transformational innovation in the design of bicycles in recent years. E-bikes, yeah, we've all, taken note of those. Riding an e-bike is like having a superpower. They've opened up cycling to so many more people of all ages and abilities. They make hills flat. They significantly increase the distance that people are willing and able to travel by bike. And this further increases the potential of the bicycle to replace car trips in our cities, which in turn increases the potential to reduce congestion and emissions and noise pollution and to make our citizens healthier and happier. And did I mention more livable cities? And cargo bikes are another great example of innovation in the technology and design of bikes. When I see parents whizzing by, transporting children in a cargo bike, I think, why didn't they have those when my kids were little? That would have been great. And cargo bikes are also enabling innovation in deliveries and logistics. So the Civitas City Changer Cargo Bike, and I saw a couple of participants in the audience here that are participating in that project, is a great way to show that cargo bikes, for example, could be used for up to half of urban deliveries that are currently done by polluting and space-consuming diesel vans. Other innovations in our cities are shared bike schemes, but also bicycle leasing schemes, for example, for company bikes. We've also seen innovations in fiscal and financial incentives to encourage and enable more cycling, purchase and repair premiums or tax incentives, for example, for cycling to work. And these innovations have all contributed to increasing the demand for cycling, but other innovations are key to getting more people to choose cycling for their daily mobility. We do need to talk about safety because that's so important for advancing the innovation that cycling brings. In survey after survey, the number one reason cited by people as to why they don't cycle or don't cycle more often is that they don't feel safe. It's hard to feel safe when you have to share the road with fast-moving motorized vehicles and when you have to cycle close to parked cars whose drivers could door you at any moment. So that means we need more innovation in implementing the engineering and design advances that have been made in this area over the years, making streets and intersections safe for cycling. And, you know, really the gold standard there is your cycling infrastructure so safe that people would let their 10-year-old or 8-year-old child cycle on it alone to school? Comfort and convenience is really important. How can we innovate to make sure that cycling is the fastest way for people to get where they want to go? How easy is it to hire a shared bike? Is there a complicated app or is there connected ticketing, seamless ticketing integrated? Is it prohibitively expensive or impossible to park your car in the city? So what kinds of disincentives can there be for car travel? Just to wrap up, I think we witnessed a lot of disruptive innovation in cycling during the pandemic. Within just a few months, European cities implemented at least 1,400 kilometers of temporary infrastructure to quickly enable more cycling. And a study showed that this temporary infrastructure increased cycling levels between 11 and 48% in the first months of the pandemic. And a lot of this is in the process of being made permanent. There's so many good examples of innovation, but I'll leave you with one final thought. For me, the true innovation in cycling is when cities really have the courage and foresight to prioritize active mobility as part of the sustainable and healthy mobility mix. When you do that, the sky's the limit, and there are so few cities really doing that these days. So thank you. I'll stop there because I think I've used up my allotted time, but thank you very much.
Thanks, Jill. I think we can all relate to what you just said. Being Flemish, I'm the proud owner of at least 5 bicycles. And of course, one of that is a smart and electric bicycle. So I definitely see the potential for getting more people to cycle. What you said about safety is also equally relevant. I think seeing children cycle in a city by themselves, that's really a sign that cycling is prioritized as it should be. So yeah, for sure, I think many of the participants could strongly relate to what you just said. I'll open the floor later for discussions with regards to your intervention. I would now like to ask Johanna to present her perspective on behalf of the ITS community, if I can say, on how you see innovation.
Yeah, thank you, Peter, and good morning, and thank you for the invitation to Eurocities and ICLEI to participate in this very important week for the project. I love the idea. You have a supporter there, Jill. I live in the Netherlands. I love bikes. I really related to what you're saying. And you mentioned, I wish they had these bikes, these cargo bikes to transfer kids to school when my kids were young, where my kids are young. And I take them to school. Okay, now they are 9 years old, so they bike behind me. We are like the duck and the ducklings. And what happens is that although we are in the Netherlands and people are really educated, it's the mentality that bicycles are everywhere and they are prioritized and so on. Still, when we have to cross the road at the roundabout and go the other side to reach school, which is nearby, they don't stop. And that is where we come in. And if you're expecting me to support the use of cars and cars are everything and so on, forget about it. And that's not a debate, it's a total agreement. So ITS comes in prioritizing and helping cities to have to create this system where they can prioritize on different modes of transport and put forward this active mobility because this is their objective and this is their wish. So sorry, I started a bit in an unorthodox way, but as Peter was saying, I work on innovation deployment for Ertico, and Ertico is a public-private organization, membership-based. We have cities and regions members, but we also have the OEMs, as you can imagine, the research centers, and the service providers, the traffic industry. Everyone who works with or on or in ITS is a member of Ertico. The stakeholder category is not everyone. So what do? We put the ITS stakeholders together around the table, and we put their expertise, their core expertise, and we go for innovation. That is the best way to go for innovation. When everyone knows that they cannot do it alone, and they know that they have to cooperate. Public-private cooperation is very important, but also among competitors. And that is important. And those who have realized it really go a long way. Those who haven't realized it and they are very much into their own little bubble, they cannot really innovate. They have their own competitive advantage, but then they realize they cannot do it alone. So, but what does it mean really? We are working on projects Horizon 2020 until now, Horizon Europe since some months. And the European Commission publishes the calls in the work plan for those of you who work on projects. They follow the SRIA, the Strategic Innovation Research Agenda, which is a document which is written by experts. And these experts are coming from the private sector. And of course, the document passes to the member states. But did I mention cities anywhere? I didn't. Did I? No, it doesn't. So my first point for you today, and the question was, how to ensure the accelerated uptake and what is innovation. I'll tell you what are the trends in a minute, but let me first pass you the message that I have. It is that in order to solve problems, we have to be aware of them, and we have to try and fail and try again, and that is where the cities come in, and they should go out there and seek solutions, discuss their problems, invite the private sector into workshops like you're doing now, and like a couple of meetings that I attended in the last 2 weeks. I attended a meeting in a Scandinavian city, a very, very good meeting, where they're discussing a solution. Actually, they're discussing a traffic management 2.0 that I'm going to talk about it later in one of the workshops. But they invited the private sector, the private stakeholders, those that are going to bid for the tender that the city is going to publish, and they discussed concepts. They discussed how feasible it is and so on. It was a one-day workshop, and that is important. So this kind of, we are the public sector, we don't speak to those people who make profit, is wrong. As it is wrong that those people who make a profit without taking into account the priorities of the cities and the objectives that the cities want to attain. I also attended a similar city meeting in Turkey. And an interesting experience was during the ITS World Congress in Hamburg last month, where we had a panel. I don't remember, Peter, if you were there. We had a panel, and we had a service provider, meaning data, traffic information, and the discussion involved bicycles and the data that we need from the bicycles in order to integrate them into traffic management and prioritize them and so on and so forth. And he was saying, there's no business case for us to collect the data. So yes, we should recognize that private sector needs a business case, because that's the job. They earn money, they give job to people and so on. But if there's no business case, it means that the cities don't require this from the service providers. They don't have business opportunities, therefore no business case, therefore no collection of data. And there should be data, because the cities need that in order to manage their mobility. So accelerated uptake of innovation means that you should speak up, you should speak to each other like you're doing today, and you should speak to the industry that can help you solve your problems, not the problems that they think they have, but your problems. So my final words about what is innovation for us, or the trends of innovation. Holistic mobility management, all modes, integrated. What does it mean? That is an innovation. It stems out of integrated traffic management. Of course, that's what you get from me. I'm a traffic management expert. That's what I like talking about. But this is where you realize it's not the road on its own, isolated in a silo. The road is impacted, and it impacts other modes of transport and their flows. Electromobility, of course. Micromobility, we call it electro-micromobility in Ertico, because we work on both. Mobility as a service, very important. I mean, multi-modality has existed for ages. Everyone takes more than one mode to go from A to B. There's no question about it. But now it's recognized under the MAS acronym. And the new thing, which of course we have been working for years, but it is considered still new, urban air mobility, and drones, and cargo taxis, and flying taxis, and so on and so forth. So these are the new trends, and accelerated uptake it really necessitates the cities to go out and speak out, speak to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Johanna. Well, we discussed this before amongst us. We both think that this holistic management of the urban transport system is super important, and there's a lot still to achieve there. And it can mainly be achieved by bringing local authorities together with private stakeholders, but also to improve cooperation amongst the commercial stakeholders, because there's also a lot of work to do there. And you mentioned many of the, let's say, the high-tech trends that are coming at cities, that are challenging cities. But I'm also happy that you stressed the potential of connecting ITS with cycling, because it's one of those, let's say, fields of action that is a bit underexploited for the moment. But maybe by having both you and Jill in this opening session of the Fast Track Capacity Building Week, maybe we have planted a seed that can make that connection grow even further. So thanks a lot, Johanna. Thank you, Jill, for these interventions. I've prepared a few questions for a short discussion, but I'm also very conscious of the time. So I'd rather first give the floor to the participants. I think we can have one or maybe two short questions for the speakers.
So Georgia, kalimera, and thank you for the excellent question. It is true that we are going through a transition, and it is this transition to what is coming, automation, digitalization, and so on and so forth. And what is important for the cities, again, let me go back to my point about this dialogue and this private public contact or exchange of information and priorities, so that the cities realize the power of digitalization, like how important floating car data is, and how important looking into an infrastructure that can host eventually automation and so on, and how to deal with this, what we call mixed traffic, a mixed situation of legacy systems and cars and infrastructures, and what is coming. So again, cities cannot do it alone. Of course, it would have been ideal. industry cannot do it alone. So there should be this dialogue and to sit down, have the cities empowered to put forward their priorities and say, I prioritize on bicycles, I close the city center, I do this and that. And industry, I'm sorry, I know it hurts people that are working in the center and so on, but this is how it is. You have to park outside and take the bicycle or a tram or another mode to go into the center that is not going to be, it's going to be more environmentally friendly and so on and so forth. So it is this that we are lacking, and this is going to save us from suddenly having things imposed on us or not knowing how to deal with them and so on and so forth. And this is where SAMPs come in, of course, because when you have a SAMP that has analyzed the situation and is able to help the city program the steps that need to be taken, I think it is a good way to go forward into adopting innovation, uptaking it, and so on and so forth.
I would just say very quickly, don't lose the momentum that the pandemic has brought us. If there's one good thing coming out of it, it's changed the way people think about the space that we devote to cars in our cities. You know, the pop-up bike lanes, the pop-up dining areas, keep those. Don't give in to pressure to go back to the status quo, because we'll have more cars than ever, I think, if we lose this momentum. And that's all I would say on that.
There's definitely potential to continue this discussion. But yeah, my role is also to keep the time. So I would end the plenary debate here, but not, of course, without thanking Jill and Johanna for their very useful, interesting interventions, explaining the ambition we need to have to tackle climate change and to make cities more livable. But also, offering some advice, I think, for the fast track community, where the priorities should be. So that's exactly what we wanted from this opening debate. So thanks a lot, both to you, Jill and Johanna.